My name's Dave Bernier. I've been a reenactor since 1978. I portray a Major General in the Continental Service. I've portrayed many different ones. Depends on where you are, I guess. They like you to be their favorite son. One of the highlights of the career has been portraying General Gates at the Saratoga battlefield. I participated in their new orientation film out there. We do this. We love history. We're all amateur historians. Some take it a little more serious than others. We do a tremendous amount of research. You get to portray some of the giants of American history. You get to work with wonderful people. It needs to be told, this story. And we feel that this story has to be brought out. We have to get these kids to understand why we are who we are, why this nation is what it is in the world. Never before was a popular revolution successful. Never before has a Republican democracy existed as long as this one has. Yes, we've got some problems, but if we can continue to keep alive the reasons that we became the United States of America, perhaps we can work out these problems to some advantage. Most of us think that we are contributing our little bit to doing just that. It's a very family-oriented hobby. That's what it's called, the hobby. And you walk through the camps and you'll see entire families. I'm quite proud of the fact that my son and daughter and all my grandchildren are involved in it. These units that you're looking at are all recreated units that actually fought in the American Revolution. Many of them fought in this northern campaign, the Champlain and Hudson Valley, the Burgoyne invasion. We have representatives here from His Majesty's 23rd Fusiliers, the Royal Welch. We have representatives from the 29th Foot, which were stationed in Canada in 76 and 77, and they were part of the Burgoyne campaign. We have representatives of the 53rd Foot. In fact, they're commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Loading of His Majesty's 53rd, acting as a brigadier. We also have some Highlanders from the 74th Foot, and we have the Eastern Woodland Indians as their Native American allies. Opposing them, we have representatives of the 25th Continental Regiment from Massachusetts. We have representatives from the Billerica Minutemen, the Enfield Company from Connecticut, and I believe we have others in the camp representing different regiments. All of these were actual regiments that fought at different times during the American Revolution. Now, the American Revolution was the longest war that America fought up until the Vietnam War. It lasted 8 years, 1775 to 1783. The war raged all through New England, New York, the Jerseys, down into the Carolinas and Virginia, and then ended up as kind of a holding action around New York City. Now, most of what we have out here are what's called light infantry. The smallest, fastest men in a regiment were picked for the light infantry. And these guys are expected to do everything on the run. They move quick. In fact, the light infantry of the 23rd was called Quicksilver because of how fast they could move. These guys will show up on your flank before you know they're there. So some of our boys are going to have their hands full this afternoon. Now tell me, does it make sense to put on a bright red coat so you can stand in a green field and let somebody shoot at you? No, it doesn't. And yet that's what they did. This is what was expected of a soldier, of an officer. Now you see the light infantry is working in what we call extended order. The way that they mostly worked in those days, the massed men shoulder to shoulder. And when the regulars come out, the regular line army, you'll see them firing in a massed body. It's what we call volley fire. Now they're moving. We've got some American light infantry going out on the flank. The regulars are pulling back. That's about the effective range of the muskets, where the men are in the lines right now. We're often asked, how come so many people are shooting and nobody's falling down? Well, sometimes, depending on what we're trying to do, we will actually order them not to die. In point of fact, someone with a lot of time on his hands did a study. The number of men on the field, the time that they were out there, in theory, how many shots could be fired. And it was calculated that there was one casualty inflicted for every 50,000 shots fired. Now that speaks to the inaccuracy of the guns. The question was asked if the British learned anything about not making their officers such a tempting target. And no, they didn't. Even at the Battle of Waterloo, which will take place in the early 19th century, the British officers are still wearing flamboyant uniforms and mounted on horseback, presenting very tempting targets. But this is a European war. They're fighting against the French. And the French don't aim at the officers. If a soldier gets it, well, that's his destiny. You can accept perhaps 10% of the officer corps in any given action might be killed or wounded. At the Battle of Bunker Hill, out of 110 officers that go up that hill, 92 are killed or wounded. That's an awful percentage. They never recover from that. They consider it that to aim at the officers like that is not the way that gentlemen make war. And this is probably the last true gentleman's war. Napoleon is going to change all that. Now we'll show you something that you wouldn't have seen in the 18th century. Major, you may raise the dead. We try to portray the generals as being understanding, patient men, which they must have had to have been. There are times when we will actually go through what we call a time warp. Sometimes, if you're in the right place, you begin to feel as though you're actually there. That the 20th century, the 21st century no longer exists and you're back in the 18th. We've had people come up to us and say they feel like they've stepped back in time. And we're very glad to hear that, because that's what we're trying to have them do. You don't know what it's like until you put on the clothes, live the lifestyle, and try to recreate what they went through. Now, granted, we only do this on weekends, but it's still quite the feeling to portray these men.